So it's webinar time. Welcome everybody to Southern Lights webinar on how to prepare a competitive proposal for the European Hydrogen Bank. My name is Annika Skåret. I am marketing manager of Southern Lights and I am moderator of this event. With me, I have Jose Cáceres. He is a hydrogen studies engineer specialized in power electronics. He is also a hydrogen consultant with many years of experience in the renewable energy industry. He will give an overview of the European hydrogen auction and how it works. Here is also Felipe Gallardo. He is CEO and co-founder of Southern Lights. So Felipe is a hydrogen expert with many years of experience in clean energy business development. He has hundreds of citations in scientific journals for green hydrogen tech research. He will show you how to prepare a winning bid and what you need to consider. So the schedule for today will be as follows. First, you will get a short introduction to Southern Lights, who are hosting this event. It will be followed by an overview of the auction and then how to prepare a winning proposal. After this, we will reveal some exclusive news for you regarding our new feature on RFNBO compliance. You will be the first ones to know about this, and we are positive that this will bring a lot of value for you. And after this, we will have questions and answers. So Southern Lights is a software for hydrogen and power-to-X project development. We're based in Stockholm, Sweden, and we have customers all over the world, in Europe, Latin America, North America, Australia, among other places. We are an energy modeling software where you can design, simulate, and assess the feasibility of your projects in an early stage. Southern Lights can also be used to prepare proposals for hydrogen auctions. It helps you to identify early stage costs and metrics that are necessary to participate in these auctions and to make informed decisions about your hydrogen production. Southern Lights is ideal for guiding projects from the early idea stage all the way to the pre-phase stage of project development. With our software, you can determine early on if your project is worth investing significant resources into and under what conditions it might succeed. We're also working on a new feature to make your project RFNBO compliant. Only a limited amount of users can get an early bird access to this feature. And in the end of this webinar, we will show you exactly what this means and how you can become one of the companies to access this feature. So you just wait. And now I will leave the word over to Jose, who will give you an overview of the European hydrogen auction. The floor is yours.
Hi, Annika. Okay, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. I'm really happy to be here in this webinar. I hope you are having a great day. So let's get into it. So first of all, just to explain a little bit of context, it's important to notice that the Hydrogen Bank is not a traditional bank as you may conceive it. It's more a financing instrument of the European Commission that's intended to support the hydrogen or the renewable hydrogen industry in Europe. So its main goal is to secure and create investment regarding or around this renewable hydrogen production. It's supported by the Innovation Fund of the European Commission that it is funded itself by the European Emission Trading System. This means that the greenhouse gas emission taxes that we all pay here in Europe support this green initiative in order to promote a more green future for everyone. So regarding specifically the second European renewable hydrogen auction, it's important to highlight that its main goal is to reduce the price gap between renewable hydrogen and its alternative. It means basically it's gray hydrogen, right? So it's also intended to accelerate the process of the development of the green hydrogen industry all over Europe And this is targeting the different stakeholders that are part of this industry, from producers, the hydrogen producers, to electrolyzer manufacturers or off-takers of any RF NBO that may be produced based on the green hydrogen. This subsidy is targeted to producers, so any project developer that will eventually produce hydrogen is able to submit to this auction. This second auction's total budget, it is 1,200 million euros, and it has a special basket intended for maritime off-takers of 200 million. It is compatible only with production projects that operate inside the European Economic Area, and this is naturally since it is a European subsidy. However, there are some other subsidies that target production outside of this region. So if we take a look at the time map, we can see that today we don't have yet the terms and conditions for this second auction. They should be released during September as promised by the terms and condition draft. So most of this presentation is based on that document. We don't have yet access to the final terms and conditions. However, based on the first auction, we expect to have this auction opening in December this year, and the process of closing it on February of 2025. The results for this auction should be published on April next year, and the projects or the developers should sign contracts for the grants on September of next year. It's important to notice this time to enter into operation on 2028, since it is a really strong commitment, as we know, but it's really important to make projects that can complete that requirement, since we will talk about that a little bit more. So, which is the selection criteria? How can we make sure our project match the requirements for this auction, as well as how can we make a winning proposal, right? So we need to understand first how our project's gonna be selected. So first of all, it will be a first stage selection that will get a pass or no go selection, and it will be based on basic characteristics of the project, and these are the project maturity, the commitment to the bid price limit. We will talk about that in the next slide. So if you don't know what this is, don't worry, it's gonna be explained later. Also, that you have initiated your environmental permitting request, the project schedule, the RF NBO compliance, and a little bit of other requirements. So let's talk about the bid. This is a very important concept for this auction, and so we will want to explain it a little bit deeper. So let's say you make a deal, you have a project proposal, and you know you can produce and sell your hydrogen at 3 euros per kilogram. However, off-takers are not willing to pay the full price. So let's say you can match an off-taker and make a deal for 2 euros per kilogram, and then there is a price cap, right? And this price cap will be, in this case, 1 euro per kilogram. In this case, you can apply for this whole euro per kilogram subsidy, and this will be your bid, which is a really important part of your proposal. And so the selection process of these projects that already passed the first stage will be a ranking and selection process. Well, all process will be ranked from the lowest bid in the first place and the largest bid in the last place, and budget will be assigned to each project from the lowest to the largest until the total budget is exhausted. So let's say that the seventh project finally take all the budget that was intended, then only 7 projects will be financed, and these 7 projects are the ones with the lower bids of the whole auction. We can talk more about this later in the Q&A. So if you have any question, please include that in the comments. So what do we else need to know to prepare our proposal besides the selection criteria? We gather all these requirements or information that's really important in 5 topics. So it's general consideration, the project maturity, the technical aspects, the subsidy, and the project execution. So first of all, as I mentioned before, there is a time to entry into operation of 3 years before signing the contract. This is really, really important. And I don't think it's easy to develop a project in 3 years after this signing, but it's a really important requirement. So whoever is developing this project must have this into consideration to make it work. Also, it's important to notice that the project production subsidy will only be applied for the first 10 years of operation. The project can live longer and produce hydrogen for more years, but the subsidy will only cover the production over the first 10 years. And as I said before, this has to be inside the European Economic Area. Regarding the project maturity that I mentioned before, this is intended to consider only projects that have some grade of commitment between the different stakeholders that will be part of this project. So for the energy supply, for the whole energy requirement for hydrogen production, a pre-contractual agreement for 60% of the energy consumption must be included in the submission, in the action proposal. As well, 60% of the hydrogen produced should have a pre-contractual agreement with an off-taker to be delivered. So those two are really, really important requirements for this auction. Additional proof of initiated permitting requests to local authorities is a document you must provide, and this will be regarding environmental permitting as well as grid connection if it does apply to your project. We haven't talked about this, but if your project gets the grant, you must provide before signing contract a warranty for 10% of the total subsidy. That's called a completion warranty. And for the application for the subsidy, you must provide a bank letter of intent for this guarantee. So you need to prove that a bank has evaluated your project and is willing to provide you with the warranty. Regarding the electrolyzer components and manufacturer, this subsidy only applies for projects that include a new equipment, and it must be at least 5 megawatts of power, of new installed power. And as well with the off-taker and energy suppliers, a pre-contractual agreement must be provided regarding the manufacturer in this case, and this must be supported with additional documentation that prove the environmental assessment of the electrolyzer production, as well of other considerations. So this is a really important task to start to have a strong relation with the manufacturer so they can provide all this documentation on time. Regarding the subsidy itself, there is a bid price limit that's 3.5 euros per kilogram. However, it's important to know that this is the upper limit of the bid. I would not recommend to try to apply to that. To be competitive, as that is a really important criteria for a project, you must be way lower than 3.5. That's important to remark. We will talk about in the coming slides. The payments to the developer or the hydrogen producer will be done after 6 months of every 6 months of production, and the payment will be proportional to the H2 production that is verified as RFNBO. And the maximum subsidy per project in the case of the general term will be a third of 1,000 million euros. And for the maritime basket, it will be only half of the total basket. So that means 100 million euros for the maritime off-takers. Regarding the execution, it's important to notice that the hydrogen bank will require you to prove, validate your project through a schedule and a competition of the tasks, the milestones you must do before entering into operation, as well as the certification for RFNBO, as well as for the savings of greenhouse gas emissions for the hydrogen. And if projects don't comply with this requirement, sanctions may be really tough. They range from subsidy reductions to actually grants contracts termination. So this is really important for project developers to keep this in mind. So what did we learn from the first auction? This was open in last year on December as well. It got over 130 bids from 17 different European countries. And it's important, as I have highlighted before, to remark that 35 bids of this total were below €1 per kilogram. So even further, if we look at the winners of this auction, they were all below 0.5 euros per kilogram. So as mentioned before, competitiveness is really important to be able to get a winning proposal. So here I just want to show you a little bit of what is a documentation summary of what you must provide to get a proposal into the auction. And there is several documents and requirements that require a lot of preparation and work for the development team, but also coordination with external stakeholders. So keep in mind that all this work requires a lot of time and a lot of dedication for you to commit to this, and as well as technical expertise on hydrogen and other subjects of the project development. So just to summarize a little bit my presentation, what makes a strong bid? I will say that one of the most important things is to get a bid as small as possible. And this can be done if you work with time and you get involved with the different stakeholders to commit to this project. They may be applying to other subsidies that are complementary with this. Sadly, this subsidy is not compatible with other RFNBO subsidies for producers that are intended for CAPEX or OPEX. However, it is compatible with non-RFNBO dedicated infrastructure subsidies, as well as off-taker CAPEX subsidies. So there are other options that can make your project profitable and viable. And finally, the Hydrogen Bank has created the Auction as a Service to kind of promote this kind of initiative in local states. So if you are in a state that gets part of this Auction as a Service, you will get a second chance to participate in another subsidy of similar characteristics. Last year, only Germany participated with an Auction as a Service, but we are hoping that this year more states commit to and get on board of this auction, since most of Europe is actually really intended to promote the renewable hydrogen industry. And well, I think this is my presentation. I hope this helps you a lot. And now I would like to introduce Felipe. He will talk to you about how to make this strong and winning bid for the auction. Felipe, please, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Jose. Very interesting presentation. I'm very happy to be here to talk about how to prepare a winning bid. We will talk about how to structure that proposal, what to take into consideration. And of course, as it has already been mentioned, we will also be talking about a way to check directly if your project is RFNBO compliant. RFNBO might be a little bit tricky to understand. Renewable fuel of non-biological origin. What does it mean? How can we make sure that when we optimize our projects, we stay compliant with the regulation? And we have a very exciting news to share there, especially for the users of Southern Lights and how to address this with products. But let's go on how to prepare a winning bid, a winning proposal for the Hydrogen European Bank. There are 6 things, 6 cornerstones, 6 drivers that structure a good proposal. It's impossible to say what do you need to do exactly to win the proposal, but if you have these 6 things taken care of, then you will have a very competitive proposal. And the first thing I want to highlight here is the off-taker, that is the consumer of the hydrogen. Most projects that are successful nowadays in the green hydrogen industry include the off-taker very much in the project development. Unlike production of renewable electricity, such as solar or wind, the production of green hydrogen and derivatives of green hydrogen, such as ammonia and methanol, requires to optimize the project for a specific off-taker. It's not like a solar park in which I find land and then I make sure I connect to the grid and then I understand where I am in the electrical system to have a PPA structure. Now, for the off-taker, the project is first the off-taker, the consumer, and then I optimize and I decide how far I'm going to be, if I need to develop transporting infrastructure, if I produce 24/7 or only during solar hours or during wind hours. Very, very, very important. Permitting can be tricky, in particular for the energy companies coming from an electrical background for solar and wind that are going into hydrogen, producing chemicals, working with industrial verticals, supplying steel manufacturing plants or ammonia production plants. It's a completely different challenge, and this needs to be taken into consideration. Energy supply strategy, there is a strong commitment that you should make in terms of first reaching reasonable cost of production, and that is mainly depending on the energy supply strategy, but also in terms of how you're going to deal with the risk. What if prices of energy goes up, and then what will happen with your price of production of hydrogen? It needs to be taken into consideration. Selection of electrolyzer, of course, one of the main points today. This is still a maturing market. Technology has a certain degree of uncertainty, and electrolyzer is one of them. Of course, there are many producers or manufacturers or OEMs, as we call them today, in the market. And some of them are cheaper. Some of them have better customer service and quality, expected degradation. This is a decision that you need to de-risk. And then, of course, the financing strategy and the financial support are crucial, as in any energy infrastructure project. But let's take a look at the problem here. The reason for a subsidy to exist is because on one side we have the producer, which in this chart is represented on the left side of the chart. And we see that the producer produces with a certain cost, the hydrogen. CapEx, OpEx are involved, and there is an initial LCOH. If we are able to optimize our proposal by optimizing the energy strategy, optimizing the electrolyzer selection, the sizing of the components, and of course, optimizing the project for a given off-taker, we can optimize the levelized cost of production, the LCOH, the price that we can sell the hydrogen so our project makes sense. And we are Talden Lights as experts in this, and we help companies doing this with software and service. There are many other ways to do this. You can work with consultants, with internal teams, but it's crucial that if you want to be competitive when approaching a potential consumer of hydrogen, when approaching this European auction, that you're able to have the most optimized cost of production, so then you can be very competitive when asking for a subsidy. And in fact, the less subsidy you ask for, the more likely you will be to win the proposal. And on the side of the off-taker, it's very important that the off-taker that you choose and that you work with sees a value in going green. We've seen in the previous auction that the off-takers were willing to pay more than what they are willing to pay for gray hydrogen. So going green for them has a value, and that might mean that they are able to sell their steel or their fertilizers at the green premium price because it's green. So decarbonizing for them, it's not just about finding equally cheap hydrogen. You need to find these off-takers, and in fact, because of the very restringent time that you need to deliver the project, if you get awarded, most of the customers are already, I would say, in conversations with the off-takers, and this is the first step for sure. So optimizing LCOH, the most important part that you can do with your techno-economical team and your business development team. The main parts there will be your energy strategy. Should you produce 24/7 and pay perhaps more expensive electricity but lower capex? You have an electrolyzer that is a smaller electrolyzer and produces with a high load factor? Or should you go and produce more during solar hours and oversize your system so you meet your production goals only during solar hours? Or maybe a combination of those. Those things cannot be there's no silver bullet for this, but you need to optimize the sizing, in particular, of your energy supply system. And the same goes for the size of your electrolyzer. If you are working in particular with specially developed assets, if you build your solar plant, if you build your wind farm, it is not necessarily true that if you have 100 megawatts of solar, you will go with 100 megawatts of electrolyzer. So you need to make sure that you optimize your project. And that optimization needs to be done for the overall profitability of the project. And when you do that, sometimes it might be difficult when you're optimizing for the profitability of the project to make sure that you stay compliant with things such as RFNBO and whatnot. So very important to look at the reduction of the LCOH on the producer side, and on the off-taker side, look for those off-takers that are willing to pay more than what they're willing to pay for gray hydrogen. In particular, the hottest off-takers today in terms of readiness to accept green hydrogen are the producers of fertilizer. They will take green ammonia that can be produced with green hydrogen. There are several FIDs, final investment decisions, that has been made in the last couple of months about this. Steel manufacturing, we know about it in Sweden. We have very interesting projects going on there. And methanol production with Maersk and other heavy transportation freight companies going and betting for methanol. So then you will find a configuration in which you have the minimum possible LCOH you can produce and the maximum possible price that the off-taker can pay, and then the subsidy will be the difference. This is how you calculate the bid. And the bid, the lower the bid, so the less money you ask for in terms of subsidy, the more likely you will be to win. So then once you find this configuration, when you find the off-taker, you need to go to the project preparation, prepare your bid, submit it, and be ready to be awarded. If that is the case, congratulations to you. There is a lot of grants and warranties that you should care for you get to that time. So the project preparation, the first thing is to map the stakeholders. And as mentioned, most of the success stories in the hydrogen space at the moment include a very strong role of the off-taker in the consortium that develops the project. So not only you as an energy company, but very, very close together with the off-taker. That we need to give you information about the demand you are supplying. So what is the hydrogen in terms of pressure, in terms of profile of consumption, in terms of where in the process you need to buy it, and also commercial characterization. What would happen if you are able to consume hydrogen that is green? Will you be able to sell more expensive your steel or your fertilizer? And then you can, of course, optimize the price and the bids that you will be able to offer. But at some point, you need to put together a project concept. You need to define, create a project report, and this is exactly what we do with Southern Lights. And if you are one of our customers, you know how easy this can be. Otherwise, you need to do it by hand or using your internal models. Choose an electrolyzer, say what is going to be its installed capacity, consider degradation, consider the dynamic performance maps, and optimally size that. So say how much PPAs from the grid you're going to get. You need to be very careful not to consume too much if the grid it's polluted, because then you will compromise your RFNBO compliance. How much solar, how much wind, how much electrolyzer, which type of electrolyzer, not only the technology, you need to also take care of the degradation and consider replacement, water consumption. And then optimize the techno-economics. And it's not about LCOH. So we talk a lot about levelized cost of hydrogen, but ultimately it's always about profitability of the project. And as it happens, once you define the price that you will get for selling your hydrogen, and you normally have that defined because it's given by the willingness to pay of your customer, of the off-taker, optimizing to minimize LCOH is not the same as optimizing to maximize profitability. So profitability is given by the price at which I sell, given by LCOH, but also by the quantity. And this is very important. So optimize your project with digital tools if you can, in a productized way. Make sure that you comply with RFNBO compliance, the rules in Europe that make your hydrogen green. And then optimize again and initiate permitting requests. For that, you will need to have a lot of information on your expectations of water consumption, oxygen that you're going to release to the atmosphere, land use, and all of this requires a lot of data. So not only you require models, you require data, and you required strong analytics. And we are one very good example, in our opinion, the best option to provide those. But at the end of the day, bottom line is you need those to make that decision. So you might get it internally or with consultants as well. Iterate through the negotiation. Talk to your off-taker all the time. Involve them in the optimization of the project, so you make sure that the project makes sense. And when your project proposal it's done, you have a document with that describes this configuration of the project, electrolyzer that you've chosen, and so on. You need to show that you have commitments for this, that it's not only calculations that you've done. And there you can define, you need to show that, as Jose showed, that 60% of your energy is already committed via MOUs, that your off-taker has given you the interest and has signed the template, the letters that you will get from the process to have an HPA, a hydrogen purchase agreement, or an ammonia purchase agreement. By the way, that's very important. Not only hydrogen, but also derivatives of green hydrogen can be considered renewable fuel of non-biological origin. The financial model, it's very, very important. These projects are mainly CapEx. You will go for CapEx if you're building, especially your energy assets, solar and wind CapEx. If you build the Haber-Bosch plant and the electrolyzer plant, CapEx. So there is a very strong influence of the interest rate you can get from the bank if you go with corporate finance, or the discount rate that you can apply if you go with the corporate finance, of course. Permitting report. And the main thing to include is always super important, LCOH, CapEx, OpEx, water consumption, the key metrics that you should always include. Make sure they are auditable. Make sure that people can follow and trust what they are being presented in a standardized way. You don't want to look amateur. You need to go with what is asked to be presented in a very transparent way. So final tips: off-taker, off-taker, off-taker. Most of the projects that can be built in 3 years are already in an advanced stage of negotiation with the off-taker. We've seen a lot of success, not the only way, but a lot of success if you include the off-taker in the development vehicle. Evaluate the sensibility of different technologies. Challenge the data you are considering. Don't go and consider just a fixed efficiency for your electrolyzer. You will have a lot of problems then facing the reality of degradation and dynamic performance of the systems. So try to standardize your assessment and make it as detailed as possible for a project concept, for a business development team. But don't underestimate the complexity of developing a project. Most energy companies are the ones that have the key to do this. Most of the cost of these projects is the cost of energy. 60% of the cost, but the 40% of the remaining cost, that it's the hydrogen infrastructure or the Haber-Bosch infrastructure, it's the most complex part. So make sure that you have the tools and the knowledge and the know-how and the ability to assess that business in a proper way. And when you do that, one of the main challenges is to stay RFNBO compliant, to comply with the rules of Europe for your hydrogen or your product to be considered green. How do you do that? When you are so much focused on reducing the levelized cost, it might be difficult. It might be that just, your model asks you to put more energy from the grid to increase the load factor, so you increase the amortization and reduce the price, and then you don't comply anymore with the carbon footprint. So we have productized a way to do this directly in our software. I'm going to show you here how it looks like. This is a feature that we will be launching in the coming days. The RFNBO compliance feature, as you can see here, for the ones familiar with Southern Lights, this is what our software looks like. We are simulating a project with wind capacity only. If you only have wind as your energy source, the chances are your project is going to be compliant. You see here green, software automatically checks that for you. And now we're adding the grid capacity of a grid in Europe that takes normally a larger footprint. And then you immediately see here that the compliance is compromised. So the Southern Lights tells you what is wrong, and it tells you what to do as well. So you get a suggestion: reduce your PPA, rely more on your wind, and reduce that. So then you can do that, and immediately you will get feedback on how to do this. We are very excited about this. This is something that most of our customers are interested in, because it will help you to focus on preparing the winning bid, which is the lowest possible bid. And when you do that, it's very hard to also make sure you keep complying with the RFNBO. RFNBO compliance is a huge topic, and we are taking care of it in the design part. So we encourage everyone to sign up for the waiting list. We will be releasing this very, very soon. And you can be one of the first early adopters of this if you sign up to the waiting list, which you can do by now using your cell phone and scanning this QR code. We will be having limited vacancies to try this as an early adopter in the coming days. So make sure if you want to try it, if this adds value to your company, that you are the first in the waiting list. There's a lot of interest here, so we will not be able to make this available for everyone at the beginning, but just make sure that you are there, and we will take good care of you. Otherwise, you are always welcome to contact sales or contact me or contact someone in our team to discuss how we can support your project proposal to the European auction, or your team, your business development team, in preparing most competitive proposals, staying in control, creating auditable designs, optimizing configurations. And now you don't need to be an expert in hydrogen to do that. For that, you have Southern Lights, which is a productized way to do it. We offer software. We also make sure that service-wise, and if you need consulting hours or technical support, we'll always make sure you get it. So thank you so much. I hope this has created value for you, that now you understand a little bit better how to create a winning proposal. It's impossible to say in 15 minutes how to do it. I always go, I'm like past time now. I see Annika is here, but we try to concentrate on the main topics, and we are always happy to talk to you if you want to learn more about this.
Yes, thank you so much, Philippe, and also thank you, Jose. So yeah, if you're interested in this RFNBO feature, you should definitely sign up to this list.